Hello and welcome to the Championship 2023-24 predictions from the On Sport podcast. I'm Craig Savage and with me as always is Mr. Daniel Cody. Don't forget, we have got Championship predictions weekly once the season starts. But we are here to do what we would normally do, predict the whole season of positions in the Championship, starting with the top two who will be automatically promoted, the playoffs from third to sixth, and the relegation bottom three who will be relegated to League One. So let's start off with the relegation zone, and we're going to start off with bottom place, 24th. Who have you gone for and why?
Well, probably a bit like yesterday's with League One, to be fair. I've started with a side who came up last season, and they're a side that at the start of the summer I probably wouldn't have put in my bottom three. But since then, it's all gone a bit wrong for Sheffield Wednesday, hasn't it? Because we always talk about a team that have come up via the playoffs losing a bit of the transfer window because they're finishing a season 2 or 3 weeks later. And Sheffield Wednesday then lost another 4 with the fiasco around Darren Moore and eventually being replaced by Cisco, who, as you know, I do rate. But even away from that, they haven't done enough transfer work. They've only got 2 or 3 in already. And he's telling fans to worry ahead of the new season, which is not really what you want to hear when you're coming up with such momentum. So I'm just a bit worried that after the euphoria of promotion, a massive club with a brilliant fan base, that they've lost a bit of that and that going into the new year, they might struggle at the start. Of course, they could change that towards the end of the window, but for now, I just feel the momentum's lost. So I'm going for Sheffield Wednesday, unfortunately, in 24th place.
24th place for me. I'm sad that I have to write this team down in 24th place, but it's Rotherham United. I'm just worried about how they will do during the summer recruitment wise. Obviously, lost a couple of good players. One's gone into the Premier League. I don't know, it's just weird. I really didn't want to put his team, but I'm not sure about Matt Taylor, how he would react for a second season. The thing is, he started well. He started okay, should I say? Not well, but he done okay. And survived pretty comfortably, to be fair, in the end, for them. So that was a massive plus for them. But I'm not sure about Robin this season. I think they might not have the strength to fight this relegation battle, I'm afraid. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to put them bottom of the table. Right, 23rd place.
Yeah, I've done it again as well. And, they could prove us wrong for the second year in a row, but I've had to go for Rotherham because you look at the strength of the table on paper. And for me, Rotherham are going to be down there. As you mentioned, they lost Ben to Luton, who obviously we're hoping will do well this year. Richard Wood moved on at the end of an era. What a brilliant servant he was for them. Probably more of a loss in the dressing room than on the pitch based on the last year. They have signed experienced Championship players in the spine of the team. They've done pretty well defensively on that front, but they've lost the creative spark. They've not got as much mobility in wide areas. They've lost Harding as well from the wide positions. And like you say, Matt Taylor did a good job to keep them up last year and continue that strong start under Paul Warne. But you basically hit the nail on the head with promotion relegations. It's the first year in 8 where Rotherham didn't change division. So you can't really criticise us for suggesting it might happen this year. Generally, they are a yo-yo club between League One and a Championship. Bit of a weird year where neither Rotherham or Peterborough swap positions, but this year, I think Rotherham, unfortunately, will be going down. So 23rd for me.
23rd is another team I don't really want them to go down. I've gone for Plymouth Argyle. Strengthening wise, obviously they kept Ballymumba's back this season. I just don't feel I feel like they're a Luton from 2019-20 where I don't think they have the strength to start with. Even though Luton did survive in the end. But in my worry, if Plymouth do start well, Schumacher goes, who can they bring in to? Because they're on that crest of wave at the moment. They're flying, obviously, fantastic season last season. I just don't think they have the strength to. Same with Robin, don't have the strength to actually survive in this league. And it's a really hard league this season. The hardest it probably has been for a very long time. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to go for last season's champions of League One. So, 22nd place.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. I've got 4 teams with a paper thin difference between 19th and 22nd, and it took me a while to decide who to go for. Plymouth, ironically, were in 21st for me, but I just think they're going to do it. I think people underestimate the size of the club, and at home, they're going to have a huge fan base. They are coming off a 100-point season, so I think they're just going to do it if Schumacher stays, which is a key point you mentioned. 19th and 20th, I went Huddersfield because look, Neil Warnock, you can't back against him, but Huddersfield haven't done a lot this summer. It's worrying. They've had the takeover. They've got a bit of stability, but they need to do more to their squad because for now, there's not a lot coming in, and I do worry a little bit about their strength in depth, but you can't predict Neil Warnock to go down in the Championship. 20 if I had Blackburn, they were going to be my surprise of the season. We saw it with, well, Huddersfield last season and Barnsley the year before. What's going on off the pitch there? Seriously. Brereton Diaz has left. Thomason threatening to leave, according to some reports. One of the few players they have brought in has got a long injury. Looks like they might lose Kaminsky, the goalkeeper, now as well. And then in the end, the team I chucked in 22nd place that I went for is a team that I alluded to in a manager special earlier this summer, which is Cardiff City, because Lamucci going for me is a big mistake, and Baluta's had a lot of criticism in some previous jobs for the way his teams play football. Of course, they've brought in a massive front three of names now with Meite, Carlin Grant, and Aaron Ramsey coming back to his boyhood club. But there's question marks on the fitness and keeping them fit. And if they start to pick up injuries again, I'm not sure they've got a lot of strength in depth. I do worry about the manager. I do worry about the fitness of the squad. If they keep two of them three fit for most of the year, I think they'll be all right. But I'm going to bank on that not happening and just reluctantly go for Cardiff to go down.
Sheffield Wednesday for me for 22nd place, and you alluded to everything earlier. It's a shower of absolute shite at Hillsborough at the moment. The sacking of Darren Moore I still think is a disgrace. Sisko coming in fine, but he's got nothing to build on because he's got no money. They can easily get a points deduction if they don't do this right again, like they did a couple of seasons ago. But it's just a mess, and there's been far too many clubs lately that have been a mess in the Championship. But I could see this one being an absolute mess again. So Sheffield Wednesday for me in the bottom three. Right, let's move on to the playoffs. Let's start off with 6th place.
Probably the one that I had the most trouble with. I've got 3 or 4 teams in the mix. West Brom will be there. Corberan will get them there or thereabouts, but is he still going to be there the way they've going? They're only bought in Sarmiento. They've lost Darrow O'Shea to Burnley. I can't, on the basis of their current squad, I can't. But if they get a few additions, I'd bank on Corberan every day. Then I was left for 6th place with 3 teams that were battling out for the playoffs the last day of last season. Obviously, I've got Blackburn nearer the bottom, so it leaves Coventry, Millwall and Sunderland battling it out for 6th again for me. Millwall, how on earth did they miss out on the playoffs the last 45 minutes of last season? I mean, they were there. They were 3-1 up at half-time. They were in the playoffs. I have no idea what happened. It was... Cruising. Yeah. And you've got to recover from that, which is going to be tricky. They have strengthened the team a bit with Brian and Nisbet coming in, but I just feel it might be too much of a psychological blow. So I've chucked them in 7th. I've put Sunderland in 8th because I just think that maybe they've not quite got enough. They lost key strikers for most of last year. Ellis Sims recalled on deadline day. Ross Stewart out injured for most of it. Ahmad Diallo's not there now again, though, which is a problem. Can they keep
Gelhardt as well?
Yeah, Gelhardt as well. It's whether they can keep Ross Stewart fit is the big question.
And Jack Clark, if Jack Clark can stay as well, obviously teams are sniffing him.
Yeah, and that's the problem with Sunderland, the way they're working, because they've got a young side, and Mowbray, for whatever you think about him, is a great coach of young players. They're always going to have interest around them, but they've brought a few more in, haven't they? Joby Bellingham, among others. So they've got a chance to be in there, but I've left them just out in 8th, and I've gone for Coventry again. I had to put them in the top 6 because they're going in the right direction. They've got stability in terms of management and coaching staff, and Mark Robbins has done a brilliant job. I think as Luton fans, we've probably got a bit more of a newfound respect for them and the fan base after what happened in May, because let's be honest, I know for Coventry it obviously ended the wrong way, but it was a brilliant day, and whoever had gone up, it would have been a brilliant footballing story. And the big trouble for them this summer was always going to be Gyökeres. We knew he was going to be going. He got a combined 33 goals and assists last year. How on earth do you replace that? They went early for Ellis Sims, who we mentioned, did well at Sunderland at times for the first half of last year, and has looked good in pre-season already. So if they can link up him and Matt Godden, they look far better when they went to a front two in the playoff final. And maybe that can be a big goal threat for them next year. Again, they've signed their usual solid players elsewhere. Brad Collins is a good keeper. Lati Boudier is a good defender. De Silva adds championship depth. But there's one big question left, isn't there? What happens to Gustavo Hamer? And I know we mentioned it a lot in the predictions last year. They've not got to play catch-up this season. Obviously, the chaos with the home ground lost them 6 or 7 games at the start of last year. They were in the bottom 3 for the first 15 weeks. I think they're going to be fine this year. If they keep Gustavo Hamer, I'll be confident they're in the top six.
Sixth place for me is Norwich City. They're just always there. I know last season was rubbish by their standards, but they're just there. My worry is Wagner. I'm not sure on him. I know he had that one season with Huddersfield that got him promoted. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure if that was the right move for Norwich to go for him. A lot of players are gone. Well, a few players are gone now. Obviously, Timo Pukki's gone. Still got Sargent there. I think Sargent's going to have to be up another level. Adam Eder, who I don't personally rate at the moment, needs a good season in him. And the rest of them, they're just there. They're just there. It just bugs me. That's why I've picked Norwich to pick B and six. So sorry, teams that I haven't picked for the playoffs, but they're just always there. So that's my sixth place. Fifth.
Well, fifth probably for me has similarities to your sixth, in which is the thing that's kind of making me think about it is the manager. And I think it's a manager you're not convinced by either, which is I've gone for Southampton in fifth. And it's quite a tricky one to predict at this stage because we saw how influential James Ward-Prowse is, and it looks like he's edging closer to an exit. Looks like Lavia may be following him out as well. That aside, they were massively lacking a solid spine in the Premier League. They had players who haven't played in a country before and players that hadn't played senior football much before, which is never a good combination in one of the best leagues in the world. A lot of them probably benefit from a season in the Championship. You look at the likes of Bazunu in goal in particular. It's going to be a great opportunity after a year in the Premier League, which was probably a little too soon. But the thing that worries me is the constant changes in playing style. And I mentioned it in the manager special. You've gone from Hasenhüttl playing a high pressing game to Nathan Jones playing a direct game to now ultimate keep ball and low tempo possession with Russell Martin, which we saw Swansea's possession stats last year. We also saw they had the fifth worst defence in the Championship. And we also saw that they conceded silly goals. And I think it is something that's a worry. I do think the style will suit the team a bit better, but I just think they might concede silly goals. And with a young side without much experience in, how are you going to react to going 1-0 down? I'm not even convinced they get in the playoffs, but when I look on paper at the squads in the division, at the moment, they should be in the top six. Ryan Manning is a good addition who he's brought with him from Swansea. So I think they're going to be in the playoff chase, and I'm going to go for them to finish in fifth place.
Fifth place for me is Middlesbrough. I wrote in my notes I'm worried about Michael Carrick, but in a way I'm not worried about Michael Carrick. Obviously he'll keep the same philosophy of play, keeping Chuba Akpom at the moment. Obviously he's got 1 year left on his contract. At the time of recording of 26th of July, he's still with Middlesbrough. Obviously they've gotten a new goalkeeper in Semi Dieng, very experienced Championship keeper from QPR. Obviously replaces Sack Steffen, who was a bit of a calamity, did concede some really high-profile goals, especially in that B team against Luton, and obviously in the playoff semi-final, didn't cover himself in glory. So Michael Carrick's got to find that way to actually drum it out of them to keep going in these sort of games, be consistent in that sort of game, especially near the end season. You look at teams like Luton that were very consistent in that second half of the season. Teams like Burnley were very consistent at the end of the season, especially at the end of the season. So Middlesbrough can probably do that again, but in this, obviously, they'll reach the playoffs again. Right, fourth place.
Well, yeah, I sat quietly in that because my fourth is going to echo your fifth. It's Middlesbrough as well. And my first four words in my notes are, will Chuba Akpom stay? Because it's so important. The amount of goals he picked up last year, dropping into that slightly deeper role, which you do have to give Carrick credit for. It did work really well. But it's not just that. They've lost the goals of Cameron Archer ahead of him, who was on loan, who has basically revolutionised two Championship teams in 2 years when he's gone in. And while Marcus Forss is a great option, it doesn't leave quite as much depth as they had before. So Chuba Akpom staying is very influential to this. They're going to have to get used to sides coming and setting up defensively against them. We saw last year a lot of 3-4 or 5-1s where they were flowing on the counter-attack. They hit teams in behind, but I just wonder now, teams are going to be worried about them from the start. So I think they might have to deal with a few more defensive displays, a few more teams that are set up a bit deeper. And we saw Coventry do it to great effect against their usual style of play in the playoffs, and it worked really well. You mentioned the addition of Seny Dieng, which I think is really solid. Great to have a permanent keeper in, and I agree he's an upgrade. I think overall they've had a good summer. Probably need one more striker just to add the goals in. And if Akpom goes, there might be a bit of trouble. But I'm going to stick for fourth place Middlesbrough. I think they'll be definitely in the top six again if Carrick's there all year.
Fourth place for me is Leeds United. Now,
Ooh.
it could easily gone to the top two, but I'm not sure on their recruitment at the moment. A lot of players have gone. Obviously, they'll have a different goalkeeper. Don't know what's happened to Millier. He just seemed to be just dropped. Cody Drame should hopefully be starting ahead of Luke Ayling. Obviously, he had a great second half of the season. Cody Drame, obviously with Luton. And then the only negative thing is it's probably a striker. They need a second goal scorer. If Nonto could easily be the player of the season in the Championship. The main thing is they've got a highly experienced Championship manager who's won the league twice in his last two seasons in the Championship. So that's why they're up there for me in fourth place. Crowd obviously be behind them, but I think they might start slowly, figure a few things out, and then I think they'll go on that run that what Norwich did a couple of seasons ago. So that's why they'll be my fourth place team.
Well, it's funny you talk about teams that could have been in the top two. I think I've gone for the bookies' heavy favourites in third place, and I'm going to get a few pelters for this, I'm sure. But I've gone for Leicester City to miss out on the top two, and the reasons are partly outlined in the manager special. But let's be honest, they were the side that for most of last season were too good to come down. They had too much attacking talent. They had England internationals. How on earth were they going to come down? But if we go back, they've had a pretty horrid defensive record for 2 years now. From set pieces, they've been diabolical, which is a big problem for the Championship because teams will exploit that. And they've lost key attacking and creative talent. Probably none of it unexpected, but Maddison, Barnes and Tielemans all off. I like that they've done sensible business. They've added a solid spine. They should be better defensively with a good keeper coming in, plus Doyle and Connor Cody at centre half. You've got experience, youth, you've got mobility and leadership. Should be strong. Harry Winks will be tidy in midfield. It's another good addition, another player with a point to prove. And he should still score goals because if between Dakary and Acho and Vardy, you can't get goals in a Championship, you are going to have one hell of a difficult season. My worry is the creative spark and Maresca because I mentioned it in the manager special. I watch Italian football. He went to a Serie B side in Parma who were huge, who were expected to go up, who had a good experienced squad, and he had a disaster. He may have learned from that. He's worked with Pep since. He seems to be approaching this differently in terms of recruitment, but it does worry me. I can't lie to you. So Enzo Maresca is probably my concern, but I still think they'll end up there because they've just got too much firepower not to, and they've signed pretty well.
Third place for me is Coventry City. Now, losing the playoff final, it's very hard to bounce back from it. And they were unlucky, to be fair. They fought hard. Obviously, a penalty is a penalty, and penalty shootouts is the worst way to lose and the best way to win, especially in the playoffs. I think Coventry can go from strength to strength on this. They'll learn their lessons from it. Obviously, losing Gyökeres is not ideal, but as you alluded to earlier, Gustavo Hamer is still there. Ellis Sims is there. Obviously, the recruitment seems to be good. But yeah, I think they could surprise teams in this league. So I'm going to go for them for my top three. I think they'll learn from and progress again. So you've got Leicester versus Coventry in a Midlands derby and Middlesbrough versus Southampton.
Middlesbrough, Southampton for me. I'm going for Middlesbrough because I don't trust Russell Martin enough. And they've got a very young side. I feel the playoffs could be a difficult one for them. Middlesbrough have experienced it, should learn lessons from the year before. Coventry, I just felt like might go up this year, but Leicester have got so much firepower in that side. And by then, if I've got what I think is going to happen right, I think they'll have a different manager by then as well. I'm going to go for more playoff heartbreak for Coventry. They'll lose to Leicester. And I think that'll be a rare third v fourth in the final. I'm going to go for Leicester. I'm not convinced by them at the moment, but they've got so much experience and firepower that if they get to that stage, you've got people like Cody and Vardy who have played for England at Wembley Count like multiple times. You've got people with experience there. Leicester City, I think, but I'd like to see it be Coventry after last season, as I'm sure you would.
Well, I've got Coventry versus Norwich and Leeds v Borough. I would say Coventry will beat Norwich. And I think Leeds will do Borough in the playoffs, mainly the second leg. So that determines it's third v four for myself as well. So Coventry v Leeds. Is it deja vu or do I go for Leeds? I think I'm just going to shade it to Leeds. So
Oh,
more playoff heartbreaks for Coventry. But I really want Coventry to go up. I have massive respect for Coventry now. But I think Leeds will do it only just again. So more playoff heartbreak. For the Sky Blues. Right, let's move on to the top two. Automatic promotion to the Premier League, starting with second place.
Well, I think this is where I start to cause some major controversy, perhaps, because I've gone for a team you mentioned just sneaking into the playoffs. I've gone for Norwich City, and not many people have them up there this year, which surprises me. And I'm going to tell you why. Because, look, the headline news, you've mentioned it, Timu Puki's left. He is the man that fired them to several of their previous promotions, and he scored goals galore for them. But there's a few positives, which are they did a lot of their key transfer work early and they got in sensible, experienced players. Jack Stacey, we know well from Luton. He's been a good fullback at championship level when he's played there. Shane Duffy, very solid centre half. And I think Ashley Barnes is a masterstroke of a signing. I think it's a real bit of genius. When he did play for Burnley last year, he was brilliant. You mentioned Josh Sargent. He got 13 last year. We'll probably need 2 or 3 more this time around to help them out. David Wagner, I know your reservations. He's not always done well elsewhere, but he did have those 2 brilliant years with Huddersfield to go up and then stay up. I know it fell apart after that, but Norwich only need it to work for 2 years here. They've just signed Christian Fassnaut, who's a Swiss international creative winger. So they've got quality in the team. And you've got to remember, last season, we both predicted them to finish second. Most people predicted them to be in the top 2 of the championship. And 90% of that squad is still there. They were up in the top 2 the first couple of months. We all thought, here we go again. And if they get off to that start this time with the experience in the squad, I think they're going to be fine. So I'm going for Norwich to do what they should have done last year and finish in second place with automatic promotion, which I'm sure most people won't have.
Second place for me is Southampton. I think similar to Leeds. I think they might have a slow start, but they still got some quality players. Obviously, at the time of recording on the 26th of July, James Ward-Prowse is still there. And you've got Adam Armstrong and Che Adams up top. So there's plenty of championship goals for them. And my worry is probably that little bit defensively because they conceded far too many goals last season. It's Southampton. First game of season, if you concede from playing out from the back, I'm going to change my second place prediction. I'm going to put in West Brom. Right. So first place, who have you got as your winners?
Well, I'm sure you can work this out by the process of elimination. I think I've worked out yours as well. I have gone for Leeds United, who are the side that, as you know, I've basically fancied since the start of the summer. I know there's been a few things that have given me a cause for concern, which are the takeover took a bit longer than it should have, which means we've got to the middle of June without any transfer work. And there've only been 1 player in at the time of recording, Ethan Ampadu, which is albeit a good signing. And I'm a bit concerned that the Daniel Farke situation dragged out. But as you mentioned with the Norwich situation, and when you talked about Leeds before, the last 2 times he's been in the Championship, he's won it. He's got a virtually unrivaled record at this level as a manager. He is a sensational man to pick to take you out of the Championship. I'm a little bit surprised they've lost as many players as they did. I thought some of the younger ones that had come in, like your Aronsons, Rocker and Christensen, they could have been stars at Championship level, but they've obviously found moves elsewhere for now. Some of them may come back in a year, some are out on loan. But if you can get the fans on side, if you can play the style of football that's more aligned with what Leeds have done in recent years, which Farke will definitely do compared to Sam Allardyce, then I think he'll get them on board pretty quickly. I'm impressed they've brought in Ampadu. You mentioned Cody Drame coming back, who has starred at both Cardiff and Luton at Championship level, but they've lost Rodrigo, who was their primary goal threat. They're linked heavily with Joel Pirro, which would, for me, set them up to win the league. But for now, that is my only little bit of concern. I just think they're too strong not to win it. And for me, with the right manager combined with a decent squad, if they get that goal-scoring centre forward in, I instinctively stick to what I said at the start of the summer, which is, for me, Leeds could potentially walk it.
My champions are Leicester. I think the recruitment's been excellent so far. When you get players like Harry Winks and Connor Cody join your team in the Championship, you're really asking a lot. And that puts a lot of pressure on Leicester, but they're very good signings. Dewsbury Hall in centre mid, Ricardo Pereira, James Justin. It'll get better for Leicester. I think I'm saying with the other 2 relegated sides, it'll take their time, and then I think they'll grow into it and probably go the long run like they did last time they were in the Championship. So there, Leicester's my team to win it. Let's have a quick recap what we have predicted for this season in the Championship. In the bottom 3, 24th place for Daniel Cody is Sheffield Wednesday, 23rd Rotherham, 22nd Cardiff. For myself, 24th Rotherham, 23rd Plymouth, 22nd Sheffield Wednesday. In the playoffs, Daniel Cody's gone for 6th place Coventry, 5th place Southampton, 4th place Middlesbrough, 3rd place Leicester, with Leicester winning the playoffs. My top 6, so some 6 is Norwich, 5th Middlesbrough, fourth Leeds, and third Coventry, with Leeds winning the playoffs. And the top two for Daniel Cody is his second place, Norwich City, and first place for Leeds. My top two is Southampton in second and Leicester in first. And those are predictions for the 23-24 Championship season. Do you agree with us or disagree with us? Let us know down in the comments and give your predictions. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Orange Football Podcast, and you can follow us on all social media platforms. And we'll see you next time.